social issues, education, religion, government, or national security. Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And welcome to the broadcast. On this November 10th, 2025, I'm going to have on with us tonight Hedieh Mirahmadi, and I'm going to have on Anni Cyrus. And we're going to talk about the Syrian president, Jalani, who went into the Oval Office today, making a lot of vets angry, making a lot of national security experts angry, making a lot of veterans angry, and the MAGA crowd as well. We'll talk about what it means. Here's a picture of it right here. Jalani in the Oval Office. Earlier, he was in the weekend, he was playing some basketball with some military officials. We'll show you a video of all this tonight. Why is this a problem? What does this mean? And how could this be used to set a narrative so that when we are attacked, our own government can't say who really attacked us because they've tied their wagon too close to this guy? So much tonight to report. We'll get to that. Also tonight, we're going to play a video out of Israel where Netanyahu was accused in the Knesset to his face of giving a stand-down order on October 7th. Now, whether that's true or not, we don't know. All I can tell you is there is great division in Israel, just as there is in America. And I want to play it tonight, not because I'm happy to play it at all, but to show you what's going on and to remind ourselves who actually carried this out. They can blame Netanyahu all they want for whatever he did or accuse him for things he didn't even do. But let's not forget who we're really concerned about. And that is the growing Hamas terrorist group that has now made it here to America. We're also going to play a keynote presentation, or I should say a little statement by this gentleman, a rabbi in New York, who actually met with Mandani. Very articulate. You got to hear what he has to say tonight, warning about the incoming mayor of New York City. Also tonight, we want to talk about Tucker Carlson. He invited a Marxist rep for Nigerian Islamists to deny Christian genocide in Nigeria. What is wrong with Tucker Carlson? We'll play the video of what he's had to say, and then play a video of an American missionary who's telling Tucker, you might want to go over there and quit talking like there's no basis for the claims of persecution of Christians in Nigeria. So much to get to tonight, including, I want to visit with David Pyne about more evidence China is preparing to take Taiwan. Are we going to fight them on it, or are we just going to let them have it? We'll get into that tonight, as well as more going on with Russia and Iran, and get his thoughts on the leader of Syria coming into the White House. We'll talk with him. So Anni Cyrus, Hedieh Mirahmadi, and of course, David Pyne. And then I want to talk to you about a church in the Mid-South who is they're under attack due to a phone call where some lady was asking for, can I just have one can of baby formula? And the church, how they responded was, well, we basically have a benevolent fund for our own people. We don't have baby formula on hand. We really just have a program that's for our own church people. Well, that church is getting ridiculed up one wall and down the other on what looks like to be an international basis. And the church is right up the road. We actually held a Worldview Weekend there probably 15 years ago. What does the Bible say about providing groceries, money, social programs to people outside the walls of the church? Is that something that we can do individually if we so desire, as maybe a platform for the gospel? Is it something we have the freedom in Christ to do as individuals? Yes. But is it a mandate that the New Testament church, New Testament fellowships, is it a mandate of them to collectively and corporately provide food and groceries and aid to people outside the walls of the church? That's the question I want to ask and answer tonight, because I've dealt with it for many years, including in my book from 2018, Marxianity. We'll play the video where the lady called the church to ask. By the way, it turned out, I guess, the crying of the baby in the background was recorded and fake. This sounds like a huge setup. And a lot of people are criticizing the church that somehow they're not being very Christian. Well, sounds like a lot of people that don't know the Bible. Because I don't know of one verse that mandates that the New Testament church give food, money, and social programs to the unsaved world or those outside the walls of their fellowship. Now, again, what you do individually for the platforming of the gospel, that's wonderful. Great, go for it. But I'm talking about the church. Is there anything that says that they should bring their gifts, their money, pool it, and then take the money from that local New Testament fellowship and spend it on the unsaved poor for social programs? Is there one verse? Now, I know people are going to point to Matthew 25, but what's the context of that verse? We'll get to that in a little bit tonight. Big show tonight. Before we do, why don't you tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social. And don't forget, we're brought to you by you. I take it each and every day. It's called Bella Grace. I'll take one right here, right now on the air. I take one every day, loaded with 3 powerful ingredients. By the way, Logan was post-editing my 2024 concert. We're a little behind on editing. We're about to release my 2024 concert with a live audience and my grand piano player. And did you notice my hair, how much thicker it looks now than it did back then? You weren't paying attention to that. Well, all right. Well, I noticed. I was like, wow, my hair sure is a lot thicker now than it was then. But you've noticed past pictures in the last couple of years, how much thicker it is now than it was. It works, folks. I mean, you go back and look at past programs, you'll see it. So I take this each and every day. You can get it at melissahousebg.com. melissahousebg.com. The Bella melts. They're selling like hotcakes. And by the way, did you hear Dr. Bashima Williams the other night, on Friday, was talking about why she likes the Bella melt, the all-natural Bella melt, why she likes it with the GLP-1. Did you hear that? We're going to make that into a little spot for you guys. It's all there at melissahousebg.com. I've already swished with this today. Numi, loaded with glutathione to detox your cells. 165,000 studies. Did you hear what I just said? 165,000 studies. Glutathione, so important. You die without it. Go look it up. And this is the most powerful way to get it into your body. Now, you can go get an IV for $199, $250, depending on where you live. It's going to be broken down, by the way, when you do it through an IV, and it's expensive. This is the old natural way to do it. Right, Dolly? This is the old natural way to do it. Switch with it for about 3 minutes, and then you can spit it out, and it's in your bloodstream within 60 seconds. Swishforlife.com. Now, what I do also do every day, in addition to the Numi and the Gatatana, the Numi and the Bella Grace, I do the Gatatana. And I do that every day. You're so cute. You're a brat, but you're cute. I do the Gatatana every day at melissahousegpa.com. My wife says I spoil this dog. Yes, I do. And it's fun to spoil her. My wife says, you just let that dog do whatever she wants, don't you? Pretty much. Pretty much. Same way I spoil my granddaughter. Who, by the way, is now calling me Papa. She's trying to say Grandpa, but she can't say Grandpa yet, so she calls me Papa. So anyway, she called today, and she heard my voice in the background, and she says, Papa. I'm like, oh, my. No wonder as a grandparent, you just start caving to these grandkids, right? So anyway, I'll be seeing her in a few weeks. We'll have to bring her back on the air probably, right? Where was I, Dolly? Oh, Gatatana. So Dolly gets Gatatana. You're strong. Dolly gets Gatatana every day on her food, a half a scoop every day on her food. She gets a half a scoop of Gatatana, and look at how healthy she is. Like, oh, I don't know if I want to give that to my dog if it makes her like that. But anyway, I put Gatatana on her food. I give her a half a scoop each and every day, and it helps to make her teeth white. Well, while you're up here, show them how white your teeth are. Look how white these teeth are. Okay, those are some really pearly whites. And she's at over a year now. But the Gatatana, I'll put that down because this isn't Gatatana. The Gatatana is at melissahousegpa.com. The Gatatana actually helps to keep her teeth white, but it also fights all kinds of free radicals in humans and pets. I give her the pet product. I take a scoop every day in water. She gets a half a scoop on her food, available at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. One of our other sponsors is the Worldview Talk. Worldview Talk. They have the satellite phones. They have bulletproof backpacks. They have solar generators. And by the way, the satellite phones are free. when you sign up for one of their very reasonable monthly plans. So check that out. Also, Worldview Talk at worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Check out all of our different sponsors here, folks, because it's so important that we bring in the revenue we need to keep this network going. One way is through our foundation. The other way is by doing business with these companies. Then they give us a percentage of each sale. And these are great companies that we highly endorse, and we ourselves use their products. So check it out, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Joining me now is Anni Cyrus. All right, a lot of people right now are not very happy in the MAGA world because an ISIS leader who had a $10 million bounty on his head has now made it into the White House. Jelani. Here is a picture right here. There is a picture of him next to J.D. Vance in front of the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. And a lot of folks are very unhappy about this. President Trump, and I'm going to have Annie respond to this. We're going to have Hedieh on in just a minute as well. Pull that down. Let me go to a video. I have a video of President Trump. I think I have a video of him making a comment about it. I bet you Annie hasn't even seen this yet. Here we go. Listen and watch.
Some announcements on Syria. We want to see Syria become a country that's very successful, and I think this leader can do it. I really do. I think this leader can do it. And people said he's had a rough past. We've all had rough pasts, but he has had a rough past, and I think, frankly, if you didn't have a rough past, you wouldn't have a chance.
Okay, a rough past. I appreciate President Trump in a lot of ways, but a rough past. A rough past. The murder of people and the murder of Christians is not a rough past. This is a murderer. Okay, we have people in prison in the United States, and yet this man is being commended and invited into the White House. And earlier this weekend, maybe you can show video footage of it, Logan, the leader of Syria playing basketball with some of our military officers. Now, this has got a lot of people on social media really hot under the collar because they don't think we should be making alliances with people that have murdered Christians. And this is the first time I think a Syrian president has ever come to the White House, much less one with this guy's background who had a $10 million bounty on him just a few months ago. Joining me on this and more, including what's going on with Iran, is Anni Cyrus. Annie, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me back, Brannon.
So he has a rough past.
Brannon, you know I love you to pieces, and I have the utmost respect for your opinion, but I appreciate nothing about President Trump. Nothing. What he did today was betraying Americans, spitting on the grave of every single man and woman who fought in Iraq, and on top of that, he just proved to the Islamic world in Middle East that we are ready on silver platter to be handed over to them. This isn't about somebody's rough past. It's about the fact, first of all, I need to set the record straight, because one of the agendas of him being in D.C., the excuse was he's going to join the coalition of the one that America created to defeat ISIS. And he did. But let's be clear, Jelani, today known as Al-Shara, Jelani was not an ISIS leader nor an ISIS soldier. He is an Al-Qaeda operator. Did he cooperate with ISIS at some point? Yes. But to make things very clear for anyone who thinks, oh, he's a former ISIS soldier because he agreed to go hunt ISIS down now, he started the Al-Qaeda Syrian chapter. That's how HTS, his military, his jihadist group, came from, the Syrian Al-Qaeda. He is still an Al-Qaeda operator. He still runs his jihadist militia that Trump administration removed from terrorist list with absolutely no proof of change of behavior. So yes, Al-Shara, also known as Jelani, has the blood of American soldiers, innocent Christians, and Druzes on his hand to this day. So yes, I appreciate nothing about President Trump, his operation, his policies, or the way he's running this country.
Well, I folks, You know, one reason we love having Annie on is because she says it the way it is. And I understand her frustration and her anger because Annie understands Islam and she understands what Islam is really all about better than myself, better than Robert Spencer, better than almost anybody because she experienced it. She lived it, okay? I understand it from an intellectual way. She understands it from a practical way. She lived it. So, again, Annie is trying to warn Americans we're being set up. You know, it's like I said to Aaron a few weeks ago, came to Israel. Your country is being groomed. Now get ready to be raped. And that's exactly what's going on here. We're being groomed as a country, so we should expect the rape real soon. And here he is playing basketball with a bunch of our military guys here in the U.S. I mean, I don't know what most veterans are thinking that had their limbs blown off or their friends who were blown up and never came home, but I think a lot of them are ticked. Now, I think I saw a congressman today standing with his, prosthetic legs, because I think he had his legs blown off, but he was standing next to him. There it is. Thank you, Logan. Getting his picture with him. Now, I don't know under what condition this gentleman, who I think served in the military, lost his legs, and thank you for your service to our country. And I'm not about to criticize this man. I'm just simply saying, and everybody's free to do what they want to do. I just don't know why, if you lost your legs in battle fighting Islam, you'd stand next to a guy that was all for Islam. But that everybody's free to do what they want to do. But I know, just as he's free to stand next to that guy, I know a lot of veterans today that feel betrayed over this. Right, Annie?
Absolutely. And I agree with you, Brannon. Everybody's free to do whatever they want to do in America, as long as our freedoms come with a very nice footnote. You are free to be who you want to be, do what you want to do, as long as you are no harm to yourself or others. Today, what happened is harm to other, me and you and the rest of America. When you open the door, here's the thing, you generously allowed my show to go on for 2 hours instead of 1 hour today, because I had to cover a lot. And on my program, what I did say, which is on my morning Substack that came out today, I kept it very short because I'm out of explanation to do. But I did mention, based on our law, Brannon, in America, it is a felony if you advocate financially for a designated terrorist person or group, or arrange travels to America for them, formerly or not. I don't care if Trump administration lifted the bounty from him and removed the HTS from the terrorist group. They were in, meaning they were identified as a terrorist group and as an individual terrorist. That's felony. That's a crime. You can't just switch the channel and say, you know what? Today I feel like this good-looking guy can make the Syrian future better because of his rough past, because he can kill more Christians. That way Syria becomes better, of course. Every Islamic country becomes better if they kill all non-Muslims. Yes, President Trump got a great point. If anybody can make Syria great again for Syria, it's Jelani, because he's not afraid to kill Christians or Druzes or anyone that's not a Muslim. You can't just decide. There is no proof. I read the entire documentation, Brannon. There is no proof that HTS has made any commitment. They have not signed any paper. They have not committed to change of behavior or operation, but they were removed from the terrorist list. As far as Jelani goes, here's how I look at it. Putting aside my absolute knowledge of Islam, my scars of Islam aside, as Christians, we believe in repent and ask for forgiveness. Have you heard anybody make El-Shaddai repent and ask for forgiveness yet? Because I haven't.
No.
How did we forgive him then? Now, legally, by law of our state, if you committed a crime against Americans, either soldiers or citizens, you have to stand trial. Why did we skip trial? Who found him not guilty and just lifted the bounty? When did that happen? Let's be honest. I never thought in my life I would say this, but here I am saying it. When Obama invited Muslim Brotherhood to the White House, this country blew up. Though he committed no crime. To this moment, Muslim Brotherhood is not a designated terrorist group. So he just invited Muslim Brotherhood. Today, Trump administration invited a designated leader of a terrorist group and a designated convicted terrorist to White House. What happened? If Obama does it, no. If Trump does it, it's part of his plan. Of course it is. It is part of his plan. But not the plan people think it is. It is definitely not part. You do not make America safer by giving free pass to convicted jihadists who are still convicted jihadists to come and have a tour in D.C. and go to Capitol Hill and meet with your lawmakers and then come to White House. You just don't do that.
Annie, what are you reading online from veterans and MAGA people today about this? What are they saying? On
my personal page, I see mixed signals. I had comments such as, relax, trust Trump knows what he's doing. I have had, I cannot believe this happened under Trump. I had people saying, I thought this would be Kamala's move, not Trump. So kind of a mix. However, majority are extremely disappointed in the fact that this happened under Trump's watch per Trump's request and approval. I would say 80% very disappointed, very concerned. 20% is still covering up for him and saying this is part of his 257D chess.
All right, let's go to another story. Surprise! NATO ally and supposedly neutral mediator Turkey graciously welcomes senior Qatar-based Hamas terrorists for a terror summit in Istanbul this week. Keep Hamas state-sponsored Turkey and Qatar out of Gaza's reconstruction efforts. Listen to this little clip here.
Summit on Turkey held a terrorist summit on Istanbul on Wednesday. Surprise. Yeah, Turkish intelligence chief Ibrahim Kalin touched base with Hamas about the Gaza ceasefire. Here we go again with our NATO allies and their Hamas clients. Kalin met with a delegation of Hamasniks headed by Khalil al-Hayya. He's the lead guy on Hamas's negotiating team, and he's based in, wait for it, Qatar. Yeah.
Annie?
Yes? On top of that, I want to create this, and that's the thing. I normally do it on your show, and then a few months later, I come back on your show and say, remember that day? Let's draw a quick triangle here. Turkey, Qatar, Syria. Remember these names, Brannon. When, as we're being groomed and we better get ready for the rape, when the rape happens, they're going to name Iran as the rapist, to cover up for their alliance with Syria, Turkey, and Qatar. The triangle that is being set right now, we start selling weapons to Turkey. Immediately, Turkey is sending weapons to Syria, while Syria turns around and said, how about this? Let me make friends with Israel, as Turkey goes to Qatar and starts shaking hands with Hamas members. And they all fly under approval of Trump administration. All of them. They all suddenly, as you said, yes, history was made today. The first time a Syrian president or head of government since its creation, which was 1946. Since 1946 until today, it was the first time a Syrian president was invited to not just come to America, but to meet with lawmakers and go to White House. Turkey, Erdogan, recently we did the same thing, right? Not making history, but Erdogan was basically boycotted from our White House, but Trump opened the door, had dinner with Erdogan again. Qatar, well, we established the fact that Qatar owns Trump and his entire family. All three, very much, one way or another, under al-Shura, because al-Shura has said publicly during his leading of HTS and being a militia, has said that his mission and goal is to wipe Israel off the map. Erdogan has said the same thing. Hamas says the same thing. Hamas is Qatar. So why would our administration enable, empower, and legitimize the top three enemies of Israel? Because Trump administration is the strongest American ally of Israel. Okay, we believe it.
All right, let's go to this. U.S. Muslim teens line up like 500 Jews and execute them in front of their wives, then take their wives as slaves. Article by Daniel Greenfield. This has to do with an Iranian American poet, right? And his son. Can you tell me about this?
Yes, that was the report I sent you, the brief report of it 2 or 3 days ago. So two men or young men were arrested. One of them in New Jersey. The Iranian guy you showed, now he was born in America to an Iranian father. The father is a poet and also a professor somewhere in New Jersey. The son is American born. The other person who was arrested, you want to take a guess from where, or should I just say it?
Yeah, say it.
Turkey. He was picked up at New York airport on his way to Turkey and destination Syria to join the jihadists there. Both of them were arrested. One, they were both plotting. They were part of the plot of a Boston Marathon bombing style bombing in New Jersey. That's their number one crime. The second thing, now that one is allegations, so I have to say allegedly, the father and son, the Iranian American father and the American born Iranian by race son, were also involved in teaching and spreading how to kill Jews, how to harass Jews, how to, basically they're anti-Jews again. And this brings me to this question, Brannon. When I say as an immigrant, I think for next 5 years, we should cap our acceptance of immigration to 0 so we clean up the first generation of jihadists in America. Am I being radical?
No.
This boy was born in America. Salman Rushdie's the stabber was born in America to Lebanese family who had alliance with IRGC. We need to clean house, including myself. Every immigrant of Islamic countries needs to be monitored. Their kid who were born in America need to be monitored. We need to clean house. We can't just give 7,500 a year is a good number. No, it isn't. We are draining in infiltration. Close the door. Do not allow anyone from any country. We don't have the time to do the process. Look, we issued a visa for a Palestinian who came to America after committing crimes of October 7th. That's proof we don't have what it takes to bring people in through clean process. Let's close the door. Let's start cleaning house first. I'm not even talking about illegals. I'm talking about legals. The first generations. How many more first generation Iranian, Lebanese, Syrian, Indian, Pakistanis are we going to catch in America until we start a process of cleaning house?
Let me go to bring in Hedieh here. Mirahmadi. Here's the headline. We've kind of been jumping off of Annie's Substack at liveuptofreedom.substack.com. From bounty to briefings, Trump's embrace of Giuliani is betrayal, not diplomacy. She worked inside the U.S. government trying to set up so-called moderate Islamic networks in 37 countries, if I remember correctly. Not one of them worked because of all the Gulf money that is continuing to fund anything but moderate Islam, as there is no such thing, of course, as moderate Islam. There are Muslims who don't practice, but there's no moderate Islam. She joins us now with Anni Cyrus to continue our conversation. Hedieh, thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you for having me.
What do you make of this today? We've shown a picture of President Trump in the Oval Office with Giuliani. There he is. We also have, I don't know if you've seen the statement by President Trump today. If you didn't hear it already, here it is.
Some announcements on Syria. We want to see Syria become a country that's very successful, and I think this leader can do it. I really do. I think this leader can do it. And people said he's had a rough past. We've all had rough pasts, but he has had a rough past, and I think, frankly, if you didn't have a rough past, you wouldn't have a chance.
What do you make of this tonight?
I know it's very disturbing for us to see this happening at this point in time, but I have to tell you, it's been happening for 30 years. It happens under every administration. And I was thinking about this case in particular and his statement because it is something I heard in the State Department, in the military, in the government repeatedly. It is street cred, credibility. Who is the credible Muslim? So when I and maybe a handful of others were trying to empower reformists, moderates, and when I say moderates, we were trying to empower reformists, people that were willing to take the Quran and say, this is invalid, this was just historical context, basically to rewrite Quranic, interpretation. Of course, at this point in my life, I realized that that was a futile effort, but at the time, I believed it was possible. But every time we tried to suggest that, every government official was like, no street cred. You don't have any credibility. You need to use the extremists, the Salafis, the Wahhabis, the whatever, to affect their own people. You're not a credible voice to them. And so this policy just gets repeated over and over again because that's the way they see this paradigm. They don't see it as Islam is a threat and therefore what are we going to do to minimize the threat to this country and abroad? They see it as, wait, we're going to take this terrorist and we're going to reform him and he's going to bring about change because they trust him. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And those of us that know better look at it and think that it's ridiculous. But I'm telling you, this has been the policy for decades. And my question is, and so what are we going to do about it? Instead of throwing stuff at the TV and getting upset, really, we have to decide as Americans, who are we? We're schizophrenic at this point. There is, a whole faction of Americans that literally want to destroy what we are. You see those ridiculous women saying, yeah, Sharia's coming, like this, like so ignorant. But that's what they're saying. I mean, those are what the people who vote for Mamdani and all of these other Muslim candidates want. I mean, they really think that that's okay. So half of America or less or more, whatever the numbers are, want to destroy what America stands for. And the rest of us want it to look like the country that our founding fathers envisioned. So what are we going to do about it? What is the American church going to do about it? What is the American populace going to do to fight back? And we have the same constitutional liberties that they do. So if they're saying it's freedom of religion, so are we going to use our freedoms to advance our purposes? It really is going to come down to the people. We can't look at government to solve this. They never do. They always choose the wrong horse.
And now I'm reading that our U.S. government has unfrozen nearly $120 billion in Syrian assets. Have you heard this, Anni?
Yes.
Yeah.
Originally, we lifted all sanctions. Last week, per United States of America's letter to UN lifted all sanctions, then followed by UK. And then today, after al-Shura's meeting with Trump signed off that their frozen assets can be unfrozen as well. Yes.
And he is the former leader of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, correct?
He is not a former. He is still the leader. He is not former. He has started as Al-Qaeda, became the Al-Qaeda Syrian chapter, then rebranded his Al-Qaeda chapter to HTS, and he is still the leader of HTS. However, HTS has become the official military of Syria, so nobody looks at it as a terrorist jihadist group anymore.
And it was removed from the terrorist list. So
it was removed, yes.
Okay.
It is officially acceptable.
So let me ask you each, you first, Hedieh. Is Al-Qaeda planning a terrorist attack on the U.S.?
I'm sure they are. I mean, that's what all the, if you read the reports that come out from memory that post all of the ISIS so to me, I don't make a distinction. I don't like to put them in these neat boxes because they get labeled based on what's expedient to the country.
Okay,
so
I understand that. The names are really to confuse the living daylights out of most people because they're like...
Right, so is there a jihadist terrorist attack planned? I am sure.
Okay, but I want to concentrate specifically on Al-Qaeda and have a reason for doing it.
Okay.
So you think Al-Qaeda could indeed be involved with other groups to plan a terrorist attack in the U.S., true?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Anni, do you believe Al-Qaeda and other groups are working in concert to plan a terrorist attack on the U.S.?
100%.
So if Al-Qaeda is tied back to Jelani, and Americans are now seeing him as we are tonight in the streets outside the White House, greeting him. He's playing basketball with our military leaders, as we saw earlier, and I can show the video again for those who maybe haven't seen it. If he's playing basketball with our leaders, and these are all the images around the TV and social media tonight, then how are the American people going to be told that the big terrorist attack that just happened in America was by Al-Qaeda if indeed this guy is tied to him and he's now our friend? In other words, are we being set up for a terrorist attack that will be blamed on someone else? Because they surely aren't going to say, oh, the guy we just dragged into the White House, his group's behind it.
Iran's going to be the
just rename it.
Okay, you go first, Hedieh. Go. What did you just say?
Yeah, they just rename it. That's why I said the names don't matter, because they'll be like, it's not Al-Qaeda, Syrian chapter. It's Al-Qaeda Pakistan chapter. It's Al-Qaeda. No, it's actually Iran. It's the Iran-backed Hamas. They just keep playing a shell game with the names and the countries to blame it on who they want to blame it on. So,
but you understand the point I'm making, which is if I'm Jelani, I'm like, this is such a massive PR move for us, because we can get our money unfrozen, get validity, get authenticity as peacemakers and good people, strong guys, good-looking guys with a rough past, but it takes a guy with a rough past to get it done. And we're getting all of this rebranding. And how are they going to blame it on us? Because now they have invested in us publicly. I mean, he must be laughing, Annie.
They're all laughing.
Well, but that's why I am more outraged today than any other administration doing whatever it is that they've been doing. Here's the difference. Yes, I actually, Hedieh John, before you joined, I was using the example of when Obama invited Muslim Brotherhood to the White House. Outrage,
Repeatedly.
everybody angry, but yes, but they weren't invited as the president of a place, as the good-looking guy who's our friend, and we're lifting sanctions and we're allowing Saudi Arabia to pay their debt. It's like we're upping our game on setting up Americans. Yes, this has been going on, but it hasn't been going on to this blunt stage where me and you know how badly we're being set up. And yes, Jelani is laughing. Not just Jelani. A lot of them are laughing. A lot of them are laughing tonight.
Okay,
Erdogan
so tell me,
is rolling off his chair tonight.
Now tell me what you think. I want each of you to tell me what, I know it's guessing on your part, but if you had to guess, what are Jelani, his aides, and the people tied to him and the various groups, what are they saying to each other tonight? What are they literally saying to each other? If you had to guess, what do you think is the high probability, Annie, you go first, of what they're saying?
MashaAllah, Lord willing, we will commit jihad. We will kill these kafirs that are so stupid that they're believing in their administration and their credibility.
That they're what?
99.9%, that's what they're saying.
That they're
We're
what?
going to kill these kafirs who are stupid enough to believe in their government and the credibility they're giving us.
Is that what they're saying tonight?
99.9%.
So something to that effect. Stupid Americans. Stupid Americans.
Stupid kafirs.
Yeah. And also that we have no backbone. We always give in. And inshallah, God willing, the caliphate will expand.
So if there is a terrorist attack under President Trump's watch, I'll ask each of you again. You first, Hedieh, on this one. If there's a terrorist attack and there's ties to Al-Qaeda, ISIS, etc., does Trump, is he damaged politically and historically, or are the American people so easily brainwashed that all they have to do is put out a spin, make up some new group, confuse the folks with a new name or a collection of names that it won't even be registered as to who was doing it, the guy tied back to the White House who was invited to the Oval Office? Jelani.
It's interesting because for me, I'm really concerned about the range of assassinations that we've seen and the nexus, the violent nexus with the red-green axis. So I'm inclined to think actually that it may be a fusion, that the next terrorist attack will use the anarchist networks combined with jihadist ideology, and that it'll be less clear that it's purely jihadi. That's my thought.
So, in other words, it doesn't end up damaging the Trump administration because it doesn't come back into the lap of Jelani. Is that what you're saying?
That would be my guess.
Annie?
I would say that there will be three groups of people. Well, four, about 10% who won't even flinch because they don't think they need to look into politics. We have the 30% who are going to come out and say Israel did it. Jews did it. We have the other 30% that are us who are going to come out and try to connect the dots. And then we have the 30% who are going to come out and say all the illegals Biden let into the country. All the illegals Biden did it. The Afghans who flew from Afghanistan did it. So it will be a split between Jews did it, Biden did it, and then those of us who are going to connect the dots into the truth of how it happened.
All right.
Now, who Americans are going to listen to, that's depend on which one is more comfortable.
Let me ask you, I love this bouncing back and forth on you with the questions tonight. Hedieh, if you were advising the president tonight, what would you say to him? If he's, let's say he gets so much criticism on social media that he's like, I don't know if I trust these people, but I heard about this Hedieh Mirahmadi gal. Get her in here. I want to hear what she thinks. What would you say to him tonight?
It'd be very difficult. It'd be very difficult. That train has left the station. So people have asked me all the time, like, why don't you call your friends? Why don't you try to get in the administration? I'm like, are you kidding? Who wants to own this bag? You know, we're so far deep and so far gone, especially with Jelani, that what could you say to somebody that's so egomaniacal that thinks that everything he does is right? So
could you tell him what's coming? Okay, so he's made the mistake. He's pulled the trigger and all these things. And he says, okay, I know I've seen you on Brannon Howse's program, because we have President Trump saying, what is it? His exact quote, Logan, was what? I've watched Brannon a lot. He's a good guy. Something to that effect. We have on video saying that. Well, I've watched Brannon. I've watched him a lot. Brandon's a good guy. So let's say he has come back to watching a little bit. I saw you the other night on Brandon's program. I already know how you feel about me. But what do you think is going to happen? What would you say? And how is it going to impact the country?
What would a terrorist attack do to impact the country?
No, anything. Going forward. He asked you, I know you've been critical of me. I know you said the trains left the station. I saw you the other night with Brannon and Annie. So just tell me flat out, what do you think is coming? What do you think is going to end up being the outcome of the policies that you say I'm already far down the road on? What's going to happen?
That we're emboldening the Islamist takeover of America. And if he doesn't start rolling it back, we're going to lose our country.
Wow.
You know, so absolutely. Absolutely. If I had the opportunity, I mean, it's the same thing I said to 3 other presidents. So
you actually said that to George. You said that to who? George H., George W., and Obama?
Yeah.
Or was it Clinton?
No, it was Obama. And actually, I was in Trump's PAC, so I said it to people in his group, you know, in his PAC. I think I might have sent it to Don Jr. too.
But you actually told this to which presidents?
George W., Obama for sure, and Trump's people. So let's put it.
So you were actually in the room and spoke like this to Obama and George W. to their face.
Yes.
Because I've got pictures of you with George W. and Obama. So you shared these things directly with President George W. Bush and President Obama.
Yes, absolutely.
Annie, what would you say if he invited you and said, okay, I've seen you. I know you're critical of me. You're not happy with me right now. What do I need to do? And what do you think is going to be the outcome of my actions, Annie?
I would say there are 5 steps he can take.
Wow, look at that. She's got 5 steps. Ooh, she's ready to go.
I am. I've been thinking about it. Number 1, I would say, with all due respect, sir, I need you to open your Bible, stay with your Bible, and meditate in the Lord's words for a couple of days. Then come back, withdraw your Abrahamic peace occurred in Middle East, and let Middle East be the Middle East while you close the borders. And you're going to start monitoring every single mosque, and you're going to start looking into every immigration from Middle Eastern countries, Christian or not, Muslim
like you did in your first term. Well, like you said, you want to monitor these mosques. You want to know what's going on in these mosques. You talked and warned about these mosques. We've played the clip of him saying all that in his first term, or while he was running for his first term.
And last, the step, those were the 1, 2, 3, 4, and last, when you find any suspicion movement from mosque or a Muslim activist inside America, you haven't picked up. And then we go from there. That would be my 5 steps.
Let's switch topics real quick. Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson talking about...
Do we have to?
Yeah, exactly. Tucker Carlson talking about Nigeria had this to say.
But he's all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere, deeply concerned about the plight of Christians in Nigeria, which I want to restate. Maybe a totally valid concern, I don't know. But that's weird. What is that? All of a sudden, everybody's concerned about people who clearly have no track record of being interested in Christians at all, including Ted Cruz. What is going on?
Okay, so he's saying Ted Cruz has become obsessed with Christians in Nigeria. And apparently the guy that he's interviewing is, and I've got an article here, if I can find it real quick. I've got an article by Daniel Greenfield where he's talking about this. Tucker invited on Marxist rep for Nigerian Islamists to deny Christian genocide in Nigeria.
Wow.
Tucker Carlson regularly has on Jeffrey Sachs, a UN official funded by George Soros, and he recently made headlines by inviting Nick Fuentes. Okay, we got that. Now, I guess, Joel Mowbray, who became famous when he exposed how the 9/11 hijackers got their visas, had a flash scoop on who Tucker's guest is, and it's really unbelievable. I was disgusted with when Tucker dismissed Christian genocide in Nigeria and claimed it was really weird that Senator Ted Cruz was talking about it, but this is a whole other level of corruption and plain evil. Tucker Carlson's guest on Friday, who declared that there's no campaign for targeted killings of Christians in Nigeria, is lobbyist of PR Flack, Robert Amsterdam, had for years represented a leading Nigerian official closely associated with the Fulani Islamists, including the very militants that have been slaughtering Christians in Nigeria. Robert Amsterdam, feted by Carlson as, quote, defending Christians around the world, end quote, represented Nasser el-Rufai, who came from 2015 to 2023, was the governor of the northern Nigerian state of Kaduna, home of the bulk, and we've gone from there. So this is who he's interviewing, Annie.
Did I misheard? Did he say, well, I don't think there's a concern to be, but he's suddenly concerned about it? Did he actually say that there is no concern for Christians in Nigeria?
I think that's what he said. Let me play it again, just because I want to be accurate. Don't want anyone accusing us of
I think he just went like, which I don't think there is a concern, but suddenly they're obsessed.
Let me go back to the clip.
Okay.
I'm going to find the clip. I got a lot of stuff open here tonight, but here we go. Here it is.
But he's all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere, deeply concerned about the plight of Christians in Nigeria, which I want to restate. Maybe a totally valid concern, I don't know. But that's weird. What is that? All of a sudden, everybody's concerned about people who clearly have no track record of being interested in Christians at all. What is that? All of a sudden, everybody's concerned about people who clearly have no track record of being interested in Christians at all, including Ted Cruz. What is...
Let me do it again.
But he's all of a sudden, kind of out of nowhere, deeply concerned about the plight of Christians in Nigeria, which I want to restate. Maybe a totally valid concern, I don't know.
Maybe it's a valid concern. I don't know.
Yeah, that's.
Wow.
As I said, do we have to talk about Tucker? Because first, it's a very valid concern, Tucker, and I mean, what is there to say? Tucker is officially. We talked about it off air, Brannon. I wouldn't be surprised if a video comes out yesterday showing that Tucker has already said the Shahada. He's defending Sharia, he's defending Islamic countries, saying how peaceful they are, and you can leave your keys to your Lamborghini in the car, and there's zero rape, and he one way or another, either that event he explained where he was attacked by the devil never left him. One way or another, he has become an ally of Islam. If he's not a Muslim himself already, he has certainly become an ally. The list of guests he has is pretty clear. Now the question is, why does he still have audience? I go back to what Hedieh said earlier, a few minutes ago. Enough of pointing finger. Everybody who's watching Tucker, funding Tucker, giving him platform and rating, those are the people to be blamed. Tucker has made his choice. We all know where he stands. Same thing with Candace Owen. I've said it over and over. Why does Candace Owen still has millions of followers? How much more does she need to say for people to unfollow and to stop supporting her? Same thing applies to Tucker. As you said earlier yourself, Brian, Tucker can have anybody he wants on his show. But those who watch and give it rating are the problem.
Yeah.
Stop.
Well, before I have Hedieh respond, here's a missionary on this. Here, listen.
Carlson and all the other naysayers and propagandists, and I don't know how to describe you guys, but this goes out to Tucker Carlson. Tucker, why don't you go visit Nigeria yourself? Why don't you go to the middle belt of Nigeria? Why don't you take yourself to Benue State? Why don't you go take yourself to Plateau? Go take yourself to southern Kaduna. Go take a trip to Taraba. Why don't you go talk to the survivors of these massacres that are now living in total, awful, horrendous conditions? The 3 million Christians that have been displaced from their homes. Why don't you go talk to the survivors of the 7,000 Christians that have been massacred since January 1st? I don't know what game you're playing or who's influencing you or who's paying you behind closed doors to regurgitate a pro-Islamist narrative. But you...
Wow, and he goes on from there. Hedieh?
Yeah, I want to point out that, first of all, what he and Candace both do is they throw out statements that people don't independently verify whether they're true. So the International Religious Freedom Commission, and I apologize, I don't have the dates. I actually wrote an article about this for the Christian Post, had designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern. They documented, it's a very long report, they documented the incidences of persecution and death and killing of Christians. The Biden administration moved to remove Nigeria. So this is before, I think they were designated maybe in 2018. Biden administration, I think 2020 goes to remove them. And there are a plethora of Congress people that were shouting about how they got undesignated. And if I'm not mistaken, Senator Cruz was involved in that. So it's extremely disingenuous of him to say Senator Cruz has never cared about Christians. That's totally untrue. And so it's, and the fact that he's making it sound, he's so flippant about the persecution of Christians in Nigeria when the State Department designated them as a result of the persecution. And so why is Trump taking it up? Because it's all over social media. It's all over Christian Broadcasting News and other conservative podcasts that, the government needs to help the Nigerian Christians. And so I can't believe that he's saying, well, it's out of nowhere. Annie's exactly right. He's on this campaign to platform a pro-Islamist perspective in every country, apparently, and Nigeria is one of them.
Wow. Is he planning on running for president? And does he have a prayer?
Apparently, he said today that absolutely, unequivocally, no.
Okay.
I saw that on a PBD broadcast today.
I want to also, again, flip topics here very quickly. I don't know if... Now, by the way, there are some pictures going around on social media of Giuliani holding two heads up. Those are fake, right, Annie? He didn't really do that, right?
I have not even seen them. But then again, I was so busy with the DC situation today, I have not looked at anything else.
This is what's going around on social media, and I'm careful to put, because I don't want to put out fake news, but that's what that's what a lot of people...
No, that's not
that is one of his soldiers from, I think this was 2014 or 20. It was one of his soldiers, but it's not. I'm sorry, I don't know why I heard the name wrong. You said Giuliani.
I did. I thought that's what they're trying to say, but they're trying to say it's this guy down here in the corner, right?
No. The guy
that is him. That is Giuliani, the bounty, the 10 million. That is him. Okay, so who's holding the heads?
That was one of Giuliani's soldiers.
Okay.
This was 2014, I want to say. This was about the time that they were designated actually as terrorist group, but that is not Giuliani himself.
But that's one of his guys.
It is one of his guys, yes. This is a Syrian Giuliani soldier, yes, jihadist.
Any idea who the former bodies belong to?
The two heads he's holding?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I remember when the reports came out, they were Christian Syrians, but no name was attached to them. The reports came out with, it was the very heat of killing Christians. It was before they picked on Druzes, they were picking on Christians. So the report originally said that they were just two Christians who were beheaded, but no names attached.
On another topic, now this is going so fast here, but here is this is, I think, a pretty well-known rabbi, Emil Hirsch, and he met with Mamdani in August. Listen to this.
In late August, after the primaries, several prominent and liberal New York City rabbis spent an hour with him. We entered with open hearts and open minds. Most of us had never met the candidate, and we were interested in taking the measure of the man. As the meeting unfolded, our mood steadily darkened and our fears increased. Zoran Mamdani is an ideologically committed, dogmatic opponent of the Zionist idea. He is not simply a critic of Israel. Policy differences are central to democratic discourse and entirely legitimate. But Mayor-elect Mamdani does not believe in coexistence. He does not believe in two states for two peoples. His opposition to Israel is existential. He believes that Israel has no right to exist at all as a Jewish state in any territory. This, of course, is the position of Israel's most implacable foes. It is the ideology of Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and their supporters in the West. The reason this talented politician with such impressive verbal skills has been unable to convincingly explain away his support for the refrains globalize the Intifada, free Palestine, from the river to the sea, is that these slogans represent his core beliefs. He doesn't hide it. To the contrary, he's proud of it. The struggle for the Palestinian liberation was at the core of my politics and continues to be, he proclaimed in a 2023 keynote speech to the Democratic Socialists of America. None of this is about coexistence. What most of those who shout globalize the Intifada mean is October 7th. For most of them, free Palestine means October 7th. From the river to the sea means October 7th.
He is a very gifted communicator. Mm-hmm. Very gifted communicator. I can tell you, I've been doing this 36 years, and that man is very gifted. He came prepared. He's very aware of his body language. He is sending multiple messages here. I can just tell you, studying him and watching him, and I don't know that I've ever watched him before. If I have, who knows? Because I've watched so many thousands upon thousands over the years. But that guy is very gifted, and everything he says is 100% right. Would that we had 100 evangelical pastors that we could point to that have said that from their church pulpits. But I don't think I can find 100. Hedieh?
Yeah, so well said. Really so well said. And I was watching a show about the exit polls that they were taking in New York, and largely, I think it was like 40%, it was a referendum on anti-Israel sentiments. They voted for him because of his anti-Israel stance. So this is really a referendum on how much Israeli hatred and Jewish hatred is in the nation right now. I really think that that's what a large portion of his victory means. It's also the economy, but I think a large portion of it is just how that the rise of anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiment is rampant in America right now.
Annie?
Agreed. And did you notice, I agree with both of you on the what a great communicator this rabbi is, but did you notice, coming from this great communicator, a compliment to Zoran Mamdani's ability of being verbally talented? Something I pointed out. Said, when you listen to Mamdani, if you don't know much about Islam, you will fall for everything he says. That's why I called him Obama 2.0, between being charismatic and being very ready to talk, use the right terms, put the right emphasis on the right end of the sentence, is exactly why it was hard to get people to understand Mamdani, is exactly what this rabbi is pointing out, because a lot of Americans are used to seeing, a jihadist or anti-American or pro-Islam guy as the shouting, screaming, angry guy. They just couldn't. I had people who would tell me that, look at him. Does he look like he's gonna commit jihad? I'm like, I didn't know it's based on the looks. Listen to him instead of looking at him. Listen to him. He's right. Mamdani has never corrected, or he's been asked many times his thoughts on October 7th. He always switched it around and made it about the Gaza genocide by Israel. But everything Hedieh said, plus the fact that I know people are tired of the left and right options, that is another reason Mamdani also won. A lot of people are ready for the third person, for the stranger, for the new chance, rather than the repeated reading of the same book expecting different result. Democrats, Republican, they both tend to basically play the same game now, naming it differently. That's what scares me for midterm. That's why I'm worried. Midterm might be a heavy green wave due to this issue of, one, anti-Semitism, two, people are tired of left and right. They're looking for a new guy who could be a socialist Islamist, could be a socialist, anything except left or right.
I want to, as we get ready to wrap, play another video. Maybe you have not seen this one, but there was a Knesset member today that accused Benjamin Netanyahu of sending a stand-down order and allowing October 7th to happen. Now, I know Israel has their own deep state, okay? I stand with the Jewish people. I understand the Bible, what it says about Israel. They will come back to being a nation, the dry bones of Ezekiel. But then it says after that, then there's the breath of life. That's the Holy Spirit, okay? So for the most part, the Jews in Israel are in unbelief, okay? I'm being patient and waiting for what the Lord's going to do with them. So let's understand, that doesn't mean that because I stand with the Jewish people and understand what God's plan is for the Jewish people and understand their biblical and historical right to the land, does not mean, as I'm going to say again, I endorse everything that goes on in the Israeli government. They have a deep state just like we do. They have godless people in their government, some of them wicked in their government like we do, right? I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. I do know I've interviewed Alan Dershowitz many times. Alan says he was a Jewish gentleman, for those who don't know, was in those towers before October 7th and said he knew a lot of those young ladies who were sitting there watching and monitoring the screens. Some of them, he said, have autism, and their autism gives them a special skill set to see and recognize things other people don't see. We have that on video, my interview with Alan Dershowitz. And he said, I don't know what went on there. But what I want to play for you folks, and the reason I'm playing it is simply because this is going to continue to be used to draw out the enemies of Israel. Watch what was said today from the Knesset. And I think Netanyahu was sitting right there. You're going to have to read the subtitles, obviously, unless you speak Hebrew, because I'm pretty sure that's what that is.
בנימין נתניהו, מאשימה אותך בטבח ה-7 באוקטובר. האסון הגדול ביותר שידעה המדינה קרה במשמרתך. גם אם אתה ישן עם מצפון נקי, לא נשכח לך, נזעק את ההפקרה, תקום ועדת חקירה ממלכתית. אני מאשימה אותך, בנימין נתניהו, במימון החמאס, בבניית הטרור, ועצימת העיניים האיום הקיומי עלינו, בהפקרת ביטחון המדינה כמדיניות. ביטחון הוא לא אינסטרומנט פוליטי, שמעת? הוא מעל הכל. אני מאשימה אותך, נתניהו, הפכת את הציבור העובד והמשרת לחמורו של משיח. יצרת את ברית ההשתמטות והסיפוח. גבורת הלוחמים נעלמה מעיניך, אבל לא מעינינו. היא האור שאיתו נבנה מחדש. אני מאשימה אותך נתניהו, השחיתות האישית שלך הפכה למכת מדינה, כל מושחת הופך שותף, ככל שיש לך תיק יותר גדול על מישהו הוא יותר נוח לך. משפט של איש אחד לקח מדינה שלמה כבת ערובה. אני מאשימה אותך נתניהו כי שכחת מה זה להיות יהודי. טראמפ החזיר חטופים במקומך בזמן שאתה בלי חשומה התעסקת בלרתום אותו לחנינה. עשרות חטופים נרצחו ונהרגו בשבי כשאתה לא קיימת את מצוות פדיון שבויים, חסר מצפון ובלי אלוהים. אני מאשימה אותך נתניהו, הגזענות תמיד שירתה אותך, קראת אותנו מבפנים, הפכת חצי עם לאויב. אז נתניהו, אני המרוקאית, המסורתית ממגדל העמק אומרת לך, אנחנו נשבור את החומות שבנית, אנחנו ננקה את הרעל ששפכת פה 30 שנה, אנחנו נחזור להיות חברה מאוחדת. אני מאשימה אותך נתניהו, רוצחים פה אזרחים כאילו הם אבק אדם, משילות עלק. כשהליכוד מתנהל כמו ארגון פשע, ארגוני הפשיעה מרימים ראש. אני מאשימה אותך נתניהו, כן, בהקרבת החיים עצמם. אנשים גמורים תחת המציאות הכלכלית, לא יודעים איך להיכנס לסופר ולשלם חשבונות. הכל פה הפך יקר, רק החיים תחתיך הפכו לזולים עד כאב.
Well, I played all that, if you could keep up with the subtitles, because I promise you this is going to be used, and I want everybody to have a clear mind about this. And I don't know what went on there that day. And I know many people believe there was a delayed response, that warnings were being sent up, that there was rehearsals going on, and that they should have been more vigilant. I don't know. And that's not my job to figure this out or defend every aspect of the Israeli government. But I do want to point out that this is happening. Now, I'm gathering, unless someone can correct me, this woman is actually Jewish, because the Knesset has members that are Arab, and I don't pick up that she's Arab. I think she's actually...
She's Moroccan.
She's Moroccan.
She said as a Moroccan woman, Jewish woman. She's Moroccan.
Okay, so...
She didn't say Jewish, though. She said Moroccan. So do we know she's Jewish?
We do, based on the fact that she said, you have, to Netanyahu, you have forgotten what being a Jew means. We will reteach you. We will rebuild the unity.
Okay, so I wanted to get to that. What I picked up that she was probably Jewish, but I want to make sure she wasn't Arabic because, Arab, because they do have Arabs in the Knesset, for those who don't know. Well, if it's such an apartheid state, how do they have Arabs in their Knesset and on their Supreme Court, et cetera, right? So people, most the average moron on the street doesn't know these things. They just parrot propaganda and lies. But I bring this up just simply to show that this will now be used by the anti-Semites to say even his own people say that he was funding Hamas, he was behind it, he let it happen. I don't know what the truth is, but it does not change anything related to the horrors of Hamas and their charter and their goal to wipe out the Jews. And I don't want people so caught up on this infighting they have over there in their country that it is used to somehow make us forget about who the real enemy is here, because it's the same enemy we have as a country. What are your thoughts on that, Hedieh?
Couple of things. Funding Hamas. Okay, so he's been forced to deal with Hamas in charge of Gaza since 2005. He's been sending aid. He's allowed them to rebuild. He's been forced into that situation by Western powers in the UN. So did he fund Hamas? Yeah, technically, indirectly, he did. He did. And so in their attempt to have, see, it's kind of, I mean, that could have been a discussion on the floor of Congress about the things that Trump does. So it's basically the other party that's unhappy with the way he's governed and accusing him of all kinds of things. Now, October 7th, let's just assume for a second that there was a stand down order. Does that mean that those were Jews dressed up? Were they actors that came and raped and pillaged and destroyed the people of that in that area? Or are they Palestinians? Are they Hamas supporters? And it's not just Hamas. Remember, Annie commented early on a broadcast I watched that they were you had videos of the little kids stealing TVs from the Israeli homes. So if he just stood there and said, you know what, I want you to see what these guys will do when our defenses are down, and that's what happened, it's still the commission of atrocities by Hamas and the Palestinians. And that's still a reality. Should he have done more to protect his people? I don't know the answer to that either. But the accusations sound like a typical right-left fight here in the United States, is that, one side doesn't like what you're doing and they hurl these accusations at you. But yet, we've had all these discussions about who committed 9/11. Well, the U.S. government allowed 9/11. I was there in D.C. on 9/11. I saw them blow up the Pentagon. And do I believe that the U.S. government did it? Should they have done more to have stopped the terrorists? Did they have enough signs? Should we have been a little, more vigilant about terrorist attacks? Sure. But did the U.S. blow up the Pentagon? I don't want to believe that the U.S. government did that. So I think it's a very similar situation for Netanyahu.
Well, you actually had a group that said it was going to happen, and you guys were called cult members and crazy and pushed to the corner. And then when 9/11 happened, they all invited you back in the room.
Yes, then I was the golden girl. Yeah, I wasn't the crazy lunatic on the side anymore. So yeah, I mean, there's all these things. There's so many data points of people that pointed to the threat of a terrorist attack by airplanes at 9/11.
But you see why I played that tonight, right? I wanted you guys to comment.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be used for propaganda. And I just want people to understand what she's saying. And Annie, I want you to respond now, which, by the way, look at this report. U.S. takes over from Israel and distributing aid in Gaza. That's the headline. So are we now funding Hamas?
Yes.
Right?
Technically, yes.
But that's what people can say. So again, we would have to have a more accurate debate on on this. But did Netanyahu build Hamas, Annie?
Okay, so I actually published a Substack on this. The accusations.
Of course you did. Annie has a Substack for everything, by the way.
Yes.
What can I say? Okay.
Well, you're good at your job. That's what you can say.
Thank you. That's what I did on my morning Substack. I said, this is going to be a short one because I'm out of things to explain. I've done my job. It's now your turn. But the Hamas funding, it's not Netanyahu. It's they claim Israel funded Hamas. It actually goes before 2005. So while Israeli government was trying to figure out what to do with PLO, they allowed Hamas back then as a group. They allowed Hamas to keep their 501c status, calling it 501c, so they could continue raising money from Palestinians, not Jews, from Palestinians to raise enough money to become a political party. They did. They won the election. They kicked PLO. That is where the story of funding Hamas comes from. There was no, by the way, the aids are not Israeli funding Hamas either. A lot of those aids are coming from United Nations. They're coming from Red Cross. It's not even Israel giving them the aids. The story of accusing Israel of funding Hamas goes before Hamas even became the government and people voted for. It's from the time of Hamas trying to build a name for itself, where Israel allowed them to have their mosque, their Islamic center with the 501c or tax deductible to raise money and become a voice. That's the root of accusation. Second thing I want to bring anybody, now I'm not going to even address anti-Semites because you have made up your mind. I'm tired. I will address those who might listen to this video and be rattled. Number one, as an American, when you listen to this, she says, Netanyahu, I accuse you of. She doesn't show proof. This is not a trial. He was not found guilty. We can walk around and accuse each other of anything we like to. That does not mean we have committed the crime. So keep that. He repeatedly say, I accuse you of. I accuse you of. Accusations hold no credibility whatsoever. That's number one. The second thing, she is clearly angry that Netanyahu didn't get the hostages back sooner. He was trying to get a pardon from Trump while Trump was getting the hostages out. This is not because I'm very disappointed in Trump today. No, this is listen to words and look at the PR campaign, crediting Trump for technically something that has nothing to do with the scenario. Trump doesn't even have the power to pardon Bibi. Did Trump request a delay on Bibi's trial during the peace negotiation? Yes. That is not a pardon. What I'm trying to say, I don't know who this lady is. What I do know is just reading the subtitles, there were way too many holes in her accusations to make it anything more than propaganda for me.
Wow. A couple more clips. When the Scottish leader of the Labour Party, that'd be your Fabian Socialist, says that they know who all the unvaccinated people are. Well, if you guys are so good at knowing who all the unvaccinated people are, why don't you know where all the jihadis are in these various countries?
Test and protect. I would get the vaccine rollout up, ramped up, rather than we know who's not vaccinated. We know where they live. We know who's not vaccinated. We know where they live. We should be looking at door-to-door vaccination.
Wow, if you guys know that.
Door-to-door vaccination? Wow.
Well, if they have such great technology, why don't they go and round up all the Islamists before they commit terror attacks? And then finally, James Carville says what's coming. And of course, this is really scary for all of us, and particularly freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the growth of Islam, legalizing all kinds of illegal immigrants to vote and kissing the republic goodbye. Listen to what James Carville predicts.
It's going to happen. A Democrat is going to be elected in 2028. You know that. I know that. It's going to be a Democratic House. It's going to be a Democratic Senator. The Democratic president is going to announce a special transition advisory committee on the reform of the Supreme Court, that we could have our third branch of government has lost the faith and trust of the American people, and his president are going to do everything alone. He's going to appoint a blue ribbon, maybe Judge Ludick and the dean of the, just the usual suspects, all right? And they're going to recommend that the number of Supreme Court justices go from 9 to 13. That's going to happen, people. That's going to happen to you. They're going to win. They're going to do some blue ribbon panel of distinguished jurists, and they're going to recommend 13, and a Democratic Senate and House is going to pass it, and the Democratic president is going to sign it, because they have to do an intervention so we can have a Supreme Court that the American people trust again. So just keep that in the back of your mind. And I would bet a lot of money that that's what's going to happen. A lot.
Wow. Closing comment from you, Hedieh?
Is that supposed to be in support of doing that, or?
Oh no, I think he's in support of it.
Because it's hard to tell by listening to it.
I think he's in support of it. That's James Carville. You know who he is, right?
Of course, but it sounded like he was being critical of it. Taken in a vacuum, you couldn't really understand.
Well, that's true, but taking who it is, I think he's in favor of it.
Yeah, his last statement saying...
Because he said that the Supreme Court is nobody trusted anymore.
Yeah, that a Supreme Court you could trust. So my closing comments on him, or just
everything in general? Everything in general we've been discussing tonight. Because it all fits together. Because can you imagine what a progressive, socialist, Marxist, Islamic Supreme Court? Because, they would have to throw a Muslim on there at least, right? The red-green axis needs to be rewarded. Can you imagine our first full admitted Islamist sitting there?
I wouldn't be surprised. Look at Ismail Royer. He's on the Religious Freedom Commission. A known convicted felon terrorist who served time is on our Religious Freedom Commission. So I don't think it's far away. But my closing thoughts is I always want to bring this back, because your audience is largely a Christian population, bring this back to the church. I think it's time for America's church to wake up and realize that it is our duty to respond. It's to get activated. Even in my local church, I went to my youth pastor and I said, listen, are we going to educate these kids about Islam? And he's like, yes, I want you to come and teach a series of classes because I want them equipped to the challenge. So, we need to go in our own communities and equip our congregations and our people to face the challenge of Islam. Don't sell your property. Don't sell your churches to a mosque. Don't elect the Muslim candidates. If this is a fight over freedom, then let's fight for freedom. But that requires us to give blood, money, toil towards that cause. And we can't just keep throwing things at the TV. We have to actually do something about it. And our republic is built in a way in which we can do stuff about it. So if all of the evangelical Christians who never vote in an election actually started voting, we could change the demographics. We could change the way these voting outcomes end up in our school boards, our city councils, our state reps, all of it. We have to start getting involved. We can't just sit back and let the atheists and the agnostics and the socialists and the Islamists take over our country. And if they end up doing it, shame on us.
Absolutely. Closing comment from you, Annie.
I agree with everything Hedieh said, but I'm going to take it one step back. Before you can vote, we need the right people, the good people, faithful people to start running. I know it's hard, but if we don't start picking up running, we're always going to end up with the lesser evil, lesser evil, lesser evil, until there is nothing left except evil. So if you can, locally run, statewide, federally, whatever, and don't give up just because you failed the first time doesn't mean you go home and you're like, I tried. The problem is we do not have good candidates. People can vote as much as they want, but if we don't give them better candidates, good candidates, somebody who has the understanding, but most importantly, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but I'll say it. Try to understand if your candidate it's not living life by the words of God, they will always be somehow bought because they don't have the moral compass it takes to lead this nation. So we need good people to run. And when you see a neighbor running for a position that could help your community, get behind them. Donate, go knock at doors for them. It's we the people. There is still we the people left, so let's do something. And then I'm going to self-promote because this is important. I finally got the chance to write a Substack that will be published tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm sorry it is behind paywall because I have bills to pay, but I finally wrote and cracked the moment you all been waiting for. I cover the truth of when World War III will start or has it already started, just using historical facts. So if you don't mind, subscribe, read that.
So we all have to go to sleep on that tonight? I think it's already started. Are you telling me that you have a specific date?
Well, I can't spoil it.
Okay, all right.
I basically I went back in time to remind people of the prediction of World War III that we all forgot.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to wait till tomorrow. It's going to be right here. Yes, it's going to be on my Substack, and again, it is behind paywall, but it's just $8 a month. But for you, Brannon, I will email you the draft tonight so you can actually read it. Thank you. liveuptofreedom.substack.com, and let's promote Hedieh's site, resurrectministry.com, I think it is, off the top of my head. Resurrectministry.com, resurrectministry.com.
You can follow me on Instagram with my name.
And follow her on Instagram with her name, Hedieh Mirahmadi.
There's an H in there, though.
She's, come on.
I'm saying there's an H, so when people spell it,
okay,
they know there's an H that's not being pronounced, so they can spell her name correctly.
Right. I'm so blessed to have you two gals in my life and in our network of broadcast partners.
Thank you. The honor and privilege is mine.
And by the way, can I just show you my other gal that I work with regularly? She's over here. There she is.
Oh.
Hey, Dolly.
Hi, Pippi.
There you are. There you are. We finally got the Dolly cam fixed tonight, didn't we? Yeah, we got the Dolly cam fixed.
She's looking at you like, Dad, are we done yet?
Are you ready to go?
Bed.
Are you ready for bed? Huh? You want to go to bed? You want to go snuggle? Yeah, she knows the word snuggle. Yeah, you know the word snuggle.
Here you go.
She knows the word snuggle. I can promise you that. Last night, yeah, you're big babies, what you are. Last night, I said to my wife, scoot over here and snuggle. And as soon as I said the word snuggle, she jumped up from the foot of the bed like a rocket and got in between us because she thought I was inviting her, because I will often say to her, you want to snuggle? You want to snuggle? And she'll come up and lay down by me. She heard the word snuggle. I didn't think she really knew the word, but I said to my wife, slide over here and snuggle. smuggle. And Dolly thought I was talking to her. And my wife was like, holy cow, that was fast. She understands you. I'm like, yeah. My wife said, how many words does she know? I say, I don't know, but she knows a lot of words. You know a lot of words, don't you? Yeah. Now, if I had a black lab, that would really make the Muslims upset, wouldn't it? Because they hate dogs, but they really hate black dogs. So maybe you need to get you a black lab sister, huh? Anyway, do you guys have dogs? Annie, you don't. You have cats. Do you have a dog, Hedieh?
No, my husband's a professional dog trainer for 40 years, and we have no dogs.
He's tired of dogs. He trained all kinds of shepherds and other dogs for the law department. Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. I had to sneak Dolly into the broadcast tonight, so there you go.
I'm glad you did. After all the stress and frustration of the day, it was lovely to see her.
I know, right?
Her cuteness. Yes.
Isn't that the truth? All right. Thank you, guys. You do a great job.
Thank you, Brannon.
Thank you.
All right, guys, before we take a quick break and continue our broadcast tonight, don't forget, coming up December 4 and 5, that's a Thursday and a Friday, we're going to be doing our International Worldview Weekend. That's a Thursday and a Friday. We're going to do an international online worldview conference, and we have invited a ton of speakers. We're inviting them to do about 15, 20 minutes in keynote presentations on whatever they want, and then we'll ask them questions, and then in many of them cases, we'll open up the phone lines. It'll be that Thursday and Friday, absolutely free. Thursday and Friday, December 4 and 5. Tweet, text, email, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social. Tell all your family and friends about it, won't you? And will you do us another favor? Will you remember us in your end of the year giving? It is so important that we have a very big November and December for end of the year giving because we need to be able to set our budgets for 2026. Free television is not free. It's extremely expensive on our end. But folks, look, we just did a nice long interview with no commercial breaks. Any other network would have been breaking every 5, 6, 7 minutes, but not us, because we want to put truth front and center. We want to educate people. We don't want to lose people by taking so many commercial breaks. And if you appreciate the fact that we respect you that much and that we're so committed to the cause as not to all be about selling product nonstop, then will you honor that commitment of ours, that professionalism, that standard we have here by actually listening and paying attention when I do mention things like this? Don't tune out. So please go right now, will you? Worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you to all of you that do give. And you'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail, worldviewfoundation.com. All right, so my friends, it's vital that we have your support. Okay? Vital. Worldviewfoundation.com. We'll be right back after this break. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, you want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator. So I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866-738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. Worldviewtalk.com or 1-866-738-3224. Joining me now is our national security expert, David Pyne. David, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Brannon, great to be back on.
You put out on social media during a recent interview on Air Force One, President Trump appeared to have given up on peace negotiations with Russia after Secretary of State Marco Rubio persuaded him to cancel the Budapest summit with Putin, where he had hoped to sign a peace deal ending the war in Ukraine. Rubio falsely claimed Russia was insisting on its maximalist terms, when in fact, Russia has been offering sweeping concessions, giving up 2/3 of its remaining territorial demands. Its demands for Ukrainian denazification and its demands on limiting the size and military capabilities of Ukraine's armed forces, other than caps on the ranges for Ukrainian strike systems. All right, break all that down for us in layman terms.
Yeah, it's been remarkable, the transformation we've seen of President Trump on the war in Ukraine. He did warn about 53 times that we were going to possibly get into World War III, that Biden was sleepwalking us into war with Russia. He promised that he would end the war on day one, maybe even before he became president, as he successfully did briefly with the war in Gaza with his excellent ceasefire deal. And, it's been 10 months, and we've seen no results. It's been all talk and no action, with the exception of a really good meeting with Putin in Anchorage that went a little bit sour because basically, Putin came and said, okay, we're accepting your deal, a ceasefire in exchange for Ukrainian withdrawal of the Donbass. And Trump and Rubio were like, not so fast. We're going to have to think that over and talk again with Zelensky and our EU partners, even though they'd already talked with Zelensky and EU partners about that exact proposal prior to the meeting. It's just been disappointing. We discussed, I think, a couple weeks ago, the momentous meeting in which President Trump met with Zelensky on October 17th in the White House, and he seemed to lay down the law. Essentially, he got profane and through the map, Zelensky showed him on the floor and said, you need to take this deal. It's a good deal for Ukraine. It's Russia's peace offer is very reasonable. You guys are losing. He's going to crush you. He'll destroy Ukraine if you don't take the deal. And then he walked out of the meeting and meekly surrendered to Zelensky's terms. Essentially said, we're not going to let Russia take the Donbass, even though, he didn't say it because it's been, talked about behind the scenes in numerous press articles. He's never publicly stated that he wants the Donbass back to return to Russia, but he stated that reportedly multiple times to Zelensky and our EU allies in NATO. So, again, this foreign policy that he has, at least on Ukraine, has been a little bit bipolar, but mainly neocon, I think.
Mm. Let's go to this one here. You put out in April 2025, the PLA Navy conducted its Straight Thunder 2025 Joint Air Naval Blockade exercise, simulating a full blockade of Taiwan. Okay, what's coming, David?
Well, there's a reason they termed it Straight Thunder 2025A. Last year, of course, they had the Joint Sword A and B exercises. The first occurring, I think, in around May or April or May, and the second one was in October primarily, and then there was a subsequent fleet exercise of 60 ships in November. So I'm expecting to see another joint air blockade exercise by the PLA Navy either later this month in November or in early December. That would be consistent with what they did last year. And these blockade exercises have become increasingly realistic, where they not only do they have live fire exercises for both air, land, and sea forces, and stage amphibious, mock invasions, but they also surround Taiwan from all sides. They even, partially surround. They got on the other side, I think, of the Philippines and Japan, simulating blockades of our other Pacific allies as well. And this is going to happen soon. I think an actual blockade or invasion of Taiwan, I think, is going to be operationalized within the next year or two at the most. So I think this is something that should alarm the Trump administration, and they should move forward with some kind of mutual understanding, along the lines that I've encouraged them to do, which would, promote a peaceful solution over war.
I guess ABC is reporting that China is secretly turning its commercial ferries into floating tanks and troop carriers, and the U.S. supposedly has the receipts of it.
Yeah, and actually, this is something I started reporting on. I think it was around July or at the latest August of 2022. It was then reported by lewd media. There was recordings of the two Chinese Army major generals in Guangdong province discussing the plan to mobilize, I think, 10,000 ton roll-on, roll-off dual-use ferries that during peacetime are used to ferry people back and forth between Taiwan and the mainland, but that have been since dedicated solely to the military in preparation for potential cross-state and amphibious invasion.
What do you make of this? Russia has now begun sending massive freight trains to Tehran, following China's lead. The train carrying 62 containers traveled 1,100 kilometers and kilometers, and took 12 days to reach Iran. What do you make of this, David?
Well, we know they're selling, I think, Su-30s, combat aircraft to Iran. They're selling more S-400, a very capable missile defense interceptors that can be used against stealth aircraft as well. They weren't last time because Iran had a mutual understanding with Trump that it would be a one-off. Each side would get to attack each other one time, and then they would implement a ceasefire with Israel in exchange. And those were, I think, kind of terms that were very favorable to Iran overall, although we did score some significant damage against their nuclear facilities. But clearly, we've given Russia every incentive to arm our enemies, Iran and Venezuela, in our own backyard with anti-ship missiles, air-to-air missiles, fighter aircraft that are fourth or fifth generation. So the next time we strike Iran, I think it's going to go very differently. I think Russia is arming Iran to the point where they could inflict significant casualties on the U.S., likely including the loss of one or more B-2 stealth aircraft bombers.
Let's see, what else do we got here? Nigeria. Someone asked, why are we threatening war with Nigeria? This Kim Iverson says, Nigeria was the single largest recipient of Chinese construction financing in the first half of 2025, with $21 billion in construction deals, making it a focal point for China's Belt and Road Initiative. In addition, in late October 2025, Nigeria and China signed a major $3.5 billion investment partnership. This agreement focuses on boosting Nigeria's infrastructure, energy, and manufacturing sectors, including the construction of new solar power plants, modernization of rail lines connecting major cities, and expansion of industrial parks. Partnership is seen as a transformative move by Nigeria's economic strategy. But if the country is in ruins because of a war in the name of saving Christians, China can't expand their Belt and Road. That's the real reason we're threatening Nigeria. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think Kim's a great conservative, and I think her post is certainly is worth considering. And I do think there's a great power competition being waged between the U.S. and China, very understandably. I think that's a competition worth fighting. I think we need to put some guardrails on it, like we haven't done in Russia with regards to the war in Ukraine. I think it's more important, even more important, to do that with China. With regards to potential military clashes over Taiwan. But with Nigeria, I've always advocated for saving Christians abroad. I think we've done far too little. During the Bush years, of course, we saw the genocide of Iraqi Christians as U.S. troops were not allowed to help them or defend them in any way. Many of those were sent into Syria, some into prostitution, and others slaughtered. Their churches were burned, and we just had a very anti-Christian policy under Bush, and then of course Obama wasn't much better. Obama, of course, a former Muslim, he was. I was a vice president of AUSA here in Utah, a chapter of the Association of the United States Army. And we actually sponsored, I think it was in 2009, just in Obama's first year, Iraqi refugees. And, I asked if any of them were Christians, and they basically said the program didn't include Christians. So the only refugees that were allowed to come, I think, were Sunni Arabs from Iraq. But of course, we know that 90% of Christians that came wanted to come be refugees here in the U.S. during the Obama administration were rejected. And I think Trump is embracing a much more pro-Christian policy that's based on saving Christian lives. And that's a policy I'm strongly behind. I don't think it's kind of hard to foresee that a U.S. Military invasion or incursion in Nigeria, but I think it's worth threatening because we really need to stop the killing of Christians.
Look at what Pete Hegseth said recently. This might shock some listeners and viewers tonight.
This is a 1939 moment, or hopefully a 1981 moment, a moment of mounting urgency. Enemies gather, threats grow, you feel it, I feel it. If we are going to prevent and avoid war, which is what we all want, we must prepare now. What
do you make of that, David?
Well, I like Secretary Hegseth. I think he's America first. I often don't agree with some of his statements. I think Mike Pence could have said the same thing just as convincingly, and we would be a little clearer of his intentions. Back when he was vice president, he addressed the cadets at West Point and said that they would soon be fighting on multiple fronts against Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. Hegseth is not that specific. I don't think that's what he wants to see. I appreciate that he clearly understands that we are on the brink of World War III, but it's because of our own policies. And so, this crisis, existential crisis the U.S. is facing right now against the Sino-Russian military alliance is one essentially of our own making, and it doesn't have a purely military solution. There's no way we can overmatch, China that has a defense industrial base probably 5 to 6 times larger than us. Russia and China combined probably have, somewhere on the order of 9 times more nuclear weapons than we do in terms of operational nukes. There's just no way to do it. So we have to use diplomacy. We have to follow Trump's grand strategy of breaking up or neutralizing the Sino-Russian military alliance through an economic partnership, a geostrategic partnership with the Russian Federation, and essentially acceding to their current peace terms that are on the table that Trump seemed pretty happy about, at least behind the scenes, according to insider reports. The one caution I would give for Secretary Hegseth is that, there were 2 great power alliances essentially were responsible for transforming 2 regional wars into unnecessary world wars that we could have avoided. Both world wars, I think we could have easily avoided if we hadn't had these great power alliances in Europe. And that's a real cautionary note on where we're at today, because, of course, we know that if we weren't a NATO member state, we never would have sent a single weapon to Ukraine to risk a nuclear war with Russia.
And then what do you make of the president of Syria, the ISIS guy who had $10 million bounty on his head? I think he's now the first Syrian president to walk into the White House. All of a sudden, he somehow went from being a guy we wanted to take out to a guy we want to embrace and work with. A lot of upset people over the weekend about this. MAGA, a lot of very upset MAGA people. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's shameful. I support, most of what Trump does. I think he's, smart. He's got good instincts. I don't understand the Syria issue. I understand that we wanted to get rid of Assad, but, really Assad was, I think, less of a threat. He was, more a factor for regional stability than the current leader of Syria. I mean, the current leader of Syria, al-Shari, I think he's got a lot of U.S. soldiers on his hands. He's a former al-Qaeda leader, al-Nusra. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to see how Trump can invite him to the White House and meet with them abroad, take pictures as if he's a respectable state leader. Do I think that we absolutely need to have sanctions or some kind of military action against Syria? Absolutely not. I think we should withdraw all of our troops from Syria. I think last I heard there was up to 2,000 U.S. troops in Syria for reasons unknown. I mean, if he's such a good guy, why don't we pull them out? So I'm a little bit not understanding exactly what the reason for his decision to be so friendly with him really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you want to follow David Pyne, there it is right there, at America First Con, at America First Con, and also dpyne.substack.com, dpyne.substack.com. As always, David, thank you for your analysis.
Thanks, Brandon. Always a pleasure.
David Pyne checking in, folks, dpyne.substack.com, and we'll be right back after this very short break. Do you appreciate all the free programming we produce here at Worldview Tube? Well, if you do, we need your partnership now. If you're already supporting us, thank you. If you're not, would you please consider doing so? We have to have a big November and December end of the year giving. Please go here right now to this website, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You can give through credit card. You can give through PayPal. You'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. You'll also find our phone number. Simply use that phone number by leaving a voicemail for Melissa or texting her, and my wife will get back with you and help you make your contribution over the phone. We send out tax receipts with our EIN number, well, the first week of February of each year. We, again, have to have a very big November and December as we get ready for pushing out more Christian Worldview programming for 2026. So thank you for going now to worldviewfoundation.com. That's worldviewfoundation.com. All right, welcome back. All right, there's a church right up the street that is making international news. They're all over social media. Perhaps you've heard about it. It's Germantown Baptist Church. It's a very large church as far as their building, their structure, their grounds. It's a beautiful colonial church, humongous steeple, big building. You can't miss it. Many people that visit our studio will say, wow, you guys have some really big churches here in the South. Yes, we do. And we actually held a Worldview weekend in their fellowship hall that church co-sponsored with us probably, I want to say 15 years ago, probably 15 years around there. And but they're making news because apparently a lady was calling up churches in the South saying that she had a child that was without baby formula. She needed one jar or one can of baby formula, and could they help her? This is the video that was put out there going viral. I want to play it for you because the church is getting hated on big time. Here's the question. Does that church or any church have a biblical mandate, a clear-cut, direct biblical mandate to help the poor outside of the four walls of their church, meaning their actual New Testament fellowship members? The Bible is very clear that if you are someone that is without, your family should be helping you. If there is a widow, her family should help her first. But if she does not have a family, then the New Testament church is to step in. There are a lot of verses related to, well, there's one over in 1 John chapter 3. If anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need and does not help him, that's a problem. And God's love doesn't abide in him. If you see a fellow Christian in need, financially in need, I'm not talking about in need because they squandered their money, then they need to suffer consequences. So you have to define, what do you mean by need? Are they really in need? Or do they have enough income, they just squander it? That's different. And again, we have to distinguish between the poor in the Bible and what we call poor in America. I've written about this in many of my books, including the book Marxianity, where I go through in detail what the average poor person in America has. It doesn't meet the biblical mandate of the poor in the Bible, where someone doesn't have a place to lay their head or a coat. And oftentimes when we see about people in the Bible who are poor, you have to read the context. It's spiritually poor, like a spiritual beggar, spiritually poor, spiritually bankrupt. So we have to be very careful when we read a passage to say, is this talking about someone that is spiritually poor, spiritually bankrupt? Or is this speaking of someone that is without material necessities? And what are those necessities? Like literally has no place to lay their head or a coat. And when we do see oftentimes the poor mentioned, it is in the context of my brethren. If you see your brother in need. Matthew 25 is often read. You know the verse, very common. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was in prison, you visited me. I was naked, you clothed me, right? That verse, Matthew 25, is at the throne of the great judgment and dividing of the sheep and goats. It's at the end of the tribulation, and the Lord is judging the Gentile nations, and he's separating the sheep from the goats. And he says, you ministered to these, my brethren. Who are the brethren of Jesus? He was Jewish. He was Jewish. And what's going on in the tribulation? Many, many Jews are being persecuted, even by their own family members, because they have come to faith in Yeshua, our Messiah. The other Gentiles being murdered and persecuted as well. But he specifically says, you ministered to these, my brethren. Now, this isn't a basis by which they're saved. They're ministering to the Jewish brethren in the time of the tribulation isn't the root of their salvation. It's not what gets them saved. It's the fruit of their true conversion and salvation. So again, verses are used that are completely out of context. Matthew 25 is about a specific group of people at a specific time, particularly, again, people ministering to the Jews that are being persecuted relentlessly during the tribulation, who have come to Yeshua Messiah. And in some cases, they're being persecuted by their own family. That goes on today with many Jewish believers, right? So look at the context. If you see your brother in need, 1 John, the context again, a believer who sees a fellow believer in need. Now, does that mean that we're not to help people who are in financial need outside the body of the church? No, that is a matter of public freedom, Christian liberty. Absolutely. If someone were to call up and say, hey, we need a can of baby food, and we know your organization's in the Mid-South, we've seen you on social media, my response would be, well, do you go to church? Do you have a local New Testament church that you attend that you can call first? Because they should be helping you. Do you have family you can call first? Because the Bible says that a family member should be taking care of their own family. He who does not provide for his family spiritually and physically is worse than an unbeliever, an infidel. Do you not have family? And they won't help. Why won't they help? Okay, so do you not, if you don't have family, how about a New Testament church fellowship? Do you have a New Testament fellowship? Do you know of a group of believers that you fellowship with or are tied to here in the Mid-South that you could call? Okay, so you have no family, you have no New Testament fellowship, okay? Well, then, again, we might have an opportunity for evangelism, right? So now maybe we use this as a process for evangelism. Okay, so I'll tell you what, why don't you give us your address? We'll get a couple cans. In fact, we'll get several cans of baby formula together. And is there anything else you need while we're at it? And maybe we'll add a few other items for you personally even. And we'll have it sent over by Uber. We can go to the store, grab some things, and have a carrier service. We have a carrier service here in the Mid-South. We use a courier, I should say. We use a courier at times to deliver things that are too far across town. We don't have time to do certain things and get caught in traffic. And by the time we spend time going there and coming back, it'd have been money well saved to just get a courier to go drop that off so we can keep doing what we're doing our broadcast, studying, preparing, etc., right? So we could call a courier up or call up an Uber and say, hey, take this several bags of groceries to this gal, would you please? And we would obviously want to include some gospel tracts, a Bible, and we might be prone to doing something like that, right? But we're not obligated. There's nothing, I cannot find one verse in the New Testament that says that I'm required to give money, to give groceries to someone outside of the church. That doesn't mean you can't. You have the Christian liberty to do that. And that can indeed be a good thing and a platform for the gospel. So please understand what it is I'm saying. Please understand what it is I'm not saying. I'm not saying it's wrong to do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm saying it's a matter of Christian liberty. You ask a few questions and you determine that this is an okay thing to do. I don't ever give cash to anybody. We see people on the side of the road here in the Mid-South will work for food. Well, then why not go get a job? There are places hiring. There are several places we've seen recently with the signs out. Hiring, go get a job. They don't want to work. And many of them want cash so they can go and buy alcohol and other things. I wouldn't never give cash. But you can give a gift card. You can say, I tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to go up to the grocery store and we're going to put $50 on a gift card to the grocery store, which everybody knows what the big chain here in town is, multiple grocery stores, a Kroger. And we'll have that couriered over and you go and get what you need. We might do that, right? But there's no obligation. There's no scriptural mandate. I have to do this for anyone that calls simply because they ask. But I will say this. There is biblical mandate if I know of a fellow believer who is in need. And again, we have to understand what need means. We're not talking wants. We're not talking they don't have what they need because they squandered their check for the last 2 weeks or multiple months. No, you don't have a need. You have plenty. You just squander your money and now you're suffering the consequences. But if you find someone like a widow and she has children or she has been abandoned by a husband and she is no fault of her own and she is your neighbor or in your community and she may not even be a Christian, yes, I would reach out and help them. I would ask other Christians, hey, let's help them right now. They have a need and maybe we can use this as a bridge for the gospel, 100%. Now, if they're inside the fellowship of the New Testament church, meaning they're a Christian, and they don't go to a local New Testament church, they do go to a local New Testament church, and that church won't help them, then they need to find a different church. What's going on? Why would you not help her? If this is a legitimate person who is in need, their local church should help them. And I know people in the Mid-South who are single mothers. They've been abandoned. The husband's walked off, left with the mother with children, and the individual's working and trying their best, but falls short at times. And I know of a local New Testament church that steps in and helps this dear lady and her children. Amen. But if someone just calls up randomly to a church and says, we want help, there's no mandate that they have to do that. It's probably a good policy to seek and find a way to maybe help if you can. But there's no biblical mandate, but there is a biblical mandate to care for those inside your own fellowship, 100%. So hindsight is always easy, right? So this gal, as it turns out, apparently this was all a setup from what I'm understanding. That the recording of this baby in the background was a recording, right, Logan? Wasn't even a real baby crying. And there's indication this woman is not even what we would call, a Christian, right? By Christian biblical definition. Some are claiming that I think the pastor of Germantown Baptist Church on Sunday said, I think this was a setup. Maybe the people, what's that? She said she's pro-choice. Yeah. And maybe the people that answered the phone had an inkling, maybe their gut, maybe their discernment, maybe the Holy Spirit helped them see that something's not adding up here. But if they wanted to help, they could have gladly said, yeah, we'll tell you what, we'll courier over, we'll have Uber pick up some stuff, we'll pick up some stuff, grab it, call Uber to bring you something, and we're going to include some gospel tracts, and we'll hope you'll visit our church, and we can plug you into our church, into a Sunday school class, and any future needs can be met by the fact that you get involved in our church. We know what your situation, your background is. But people are dogging this church as though this church was obligated. But the church made it very clear, you know what, we have a benevolence fund, but it's for people inside our church. Now, the Bible talks about that. The Bible mandates that we as believers care for one another. You see this in the New Testament when the new church has just been formed in the book of Acts. You see that they are selling their possessions as people have need and helping them. Now, that's not socialism. I deal with that in several of my books. They're going house to house. The people in that New Testament fellowship, as this new church has been birthed on the day of Pentecost there in the book of Acts, they have their own homes and they're going house to house. They're not living in a commune, but they did have resources and they sold resources as there was a need. But this was voluntary. This isn't government forced. They sold resources as there were need among fellow believers, many of them who were coming in to be trained and to grow in their new faith. So yes, we see a biblical framework over and over for helping believers inside the confines of a New Testament church, New Testament fellowship, or people that we know are part of, quote, the church, ecclesia called out once. So let's understand the people that are trashing this church, the church is at complete liberty to say, I'm sorry, we really don't have anything for that. Our benevolence fund is for our local people in our church. You know, if you give all of the money that the church has in their budget for giving away food, assistance to the general community, you wouldn't have anything left to help the people inside your New Testament fellowship, which again, you're commanded to help them if they have no family that can do so. So this is look like a gigantic setup, and people are going off on this church that clearly do not understand what the scripture says. They will take scriptures out of context that are not being applied to the New Testament church today, like Matthew 25. Or if you see your brother in need. Now you say, well, what about James? Because James chapter 1, verse 27 says, pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself unstained. Well, this is a book, the book of James, to the 12 tribes who are dispersed abroad. So again, it seems to be speaking about the widows and orphans among their own people. But again, no one is saying that you are obligated to give food, resources, money to any widow or orphan that just calls up. But we know for sure there are many biblical mandates for caring for the needy inside your own four walls of your New Testament church fellowship. So isn't it interesting how many are standing in judgment of this church without A, knowing the Bible, or B, knowing the background, and C, how do we know the people at the church weren't sensing a setup? Which apparently that's what actually turned out to be. Watch this.
So I'm calling your church to test to see if they would help feed a starving baby. And right now I'm about to call Germantown Baptist Church located in Memphis, Tennessee. And we are going to see if they would be willing to feed a starving baby.
Thank you for calling Germantown Baptist Church. Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed. Press 1 for our address. Press 2 for worship service information, or press 0 for the operator.
Germantown Baptist Church.
Hiya, I was wanting to see if you all could help with a small can of baby formula.
If we can help with what? I'm sorry.
Like a small can of baby formula.
Let me get the pastor on call for you. Let me place you on a hold. One moment, please.
Thank you for calling Germantown Baptist Church. Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed.
Thank you, ma'am. I saw you hung up and I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to call her back. But my system was jammed up, so I couldn't see who was actually on call. I'm like, what is going on? And it's not working. And I usually print that out, and I didn't this time, but I'm just gonna walk back there and see, okay? Okay, one moment.
Okay.
Hello?
Hi, yes. I was just wanting to see if y'all were able to help with baby formula at all.
We unfortunately are not. We have a benevolence program, but it is for our members.
It's just for the members, because like I have a 2-month-old and she hasn't ate like since last night, so she's gone all night and all day without any formula. Like I don't need money or anything, I just need like a small little can, and I've been calling everywhere and they're just telling me call churches, and I just don't know what else to do.
Yeah, I mean we don't have any formula here to give out. We don't have any kind of food bank or anything like that.
Would it be something y'all could get and I could pick it up?
What's that?
Would it be something you all would be able to get and I can pick it up?
Well, like I said, if it's anything like that, our benevolence is for our members.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. The guy is put in again in a tough position because the church has policies. And again, it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback. And maybe, again, the thing would have been to ask more questions. But even then, the church has policies. They are entitled as a private church, as a private organization, to have their own policies that their deacons or their elders set, which, as he said, is a benevolence program for our own members. Now, again, maybe they sensed something was kind of odd, because there are plenty of social programs out here. And now we all know that people are filling up their grocery carts with soda pop and Coca-Cola and candy and all kinds of stuff with the SNAP program. We've seen that, right? So maybe something just wasn't sitting right. But all that aside, that's a church that has the right to set their own policy. And people somehow saying that they're being bad Christians because they don't have a can of baby formula to give. Well, they can make that judgment if they want, but this church is known for having done a lot of evangelistic events. They're a big church at one time that's gone down in size. I think they've actually had some of their own financial struggles from what I hear around the community because they have such a big facility and a big grounds, and the church has gone down in size. So, their budgets may be very tight. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I'm not a part of that New Testament fellowship, and they have every right to set their own policies and say, we want to save our resources for our own members. Now, again, we could say, well, wouldn't it have been better if he asked more questions and maybe he could have found a way to get her one can? But it turns out this was not even a legitimate situation. So people are condemning the church over what seemed to be a complete setup. I think that was the recording of a baby. So the lady, isn't she involved in lying? Isn't she being deceitful? Isn't she playing gotcha? And she doesn't even know enough about the church to know that it's not in Memphis. This church is not in Memphis. It's in Germantown. So why is everyone making issue over the church that has every right to have their own policies for how they spend their money as a church, with their own benevolence program being for their own members, so they can know how are people living? Why are they in need? Why don't they have the money they need? Do they not have a job? Why don't they have a job? Where's the father of this child? Does the individual have family that can help out? Because again, the Bible says if you have someone, a widow that's in need, her family is responsible. Then if they don't help out, the New Testament fellowship can and should. There's a lot of questions to be asked here. And she's not even a part of the fellowship. But why are people not saying, wait a minute, lady, aren't you being dishonest? Aren't you playing gotcha? Aren't you deceiving them? And again, many people taking the scriptures out of context. Now, I want to play a little clip on how the pastor responded on Sunday. Do we have that, Logan? The pastor, how he responded? Yeah, let's play that one, because I think he says the woman is a self-described pro-choice. Here's my book, Marxianity, from 2018. Look at this. This is coming from the census, the government's own census, Bureau of Census. This is what is the poor in America now, which I guarantee you most people don't know this. So we have to be very careful when we say, well, somebody's poor. What does that mean? In the Bible, it means, as I said, you don't have a place to lay your head or a coat. The poor in America, and this was from a few years ago, 43% of all poor households actually own their own homes. The average home owned by persons classified as poor by the Census Bureau is the 3-bedroom house with 1.5 baths, a garage, and a porch or patio. 80% of poor households have air conditioning. By contrast, in 1970, only 36% of the entire U.S. population enjoyed air conditioning. Only 6% of poor households are overcrowded. More than 2/3 have more than 2 rooms per person. The average poor American has more living space than the average individual living in Paris, London, Vienna, Athens, and other cities throughout Europe. These comparisons are to the average citizen in foreign countries, not to those classified as poor. Nearly 3/4 of poor households own a car. 31% own 2 or more cars. 97% of poor households have a color television. Over half own 2 or more color televisions. 78% have a VCR, a DVD player. 62% have cable or satellite TV reception. 89% own microwave ovens. More than half have a stereo. More than 1/3 have an automatic dishwasher. Of course, you could update those today. How many of them have cell phones? Here's the reality, too. Do you know how many phone calls some of these very, very large churches or even an average-sized church might get in a given week asking for a handout? Now, if they were to comply every time someone called, what do you think that would do in taking away funds for the people in need inside their own church? You see, there are a lot of questions that are not being asked, like I'm asking tonight. People are having an emotional response to this. Show me one verse, one, that mandates Christians give their money to the unsaved outside the 4 walls of their church. One. Now, there are some verses that could be generalized, but I'm saying a clear-cut mandate. I'm not saying that you shouldn't help people and use it as a foundation for giving the gospel, a Bible, tracts, trying to get them plugged into your church. But folks, let's be very clear. Many people don't know what biblical Christianity is, and they think the job of Christians is simply to feed the poor. If you were to ask the average person criticizing this church, what is the Great Commission? Tell me what is the gospel? They couldn't define the Great Commission. They couldn't define the gospel, but they want to criticize this church, which has every right biblically and common sense-wise to be careful. And to say we have limited resources, limited. And we need to be sure we're using our resources for our own church family members, as he described. Here is how the pastor responded on Sunday morning.
The video that has celebrated what is believed to be unrighteous behavior on our part is itself an unrighteous, fake attempt to set a trap for us and derail the ministry of GBC and steal our joy and steal our confidence as the people of God. We seek to walk in the light and walk in truth. The attempt to disparage GBC is neither light nor truth. The writer of Proverbs is known to personify wisdom as a person, but he also personifies folly. He says in chapter 9, verse 13, the woman folly is loud. She is seductive and knows nothing.
There you go. Now someone say, what about the Good Samaritan? All right, let's go back to my book, Marxianity. Let me quote my friend Carl Tykrib. He says, the biblical parable of the Good Samaritan demonstrates true compassion, Luke 10. A Jewish man has been beaten, robbed, and left to die on the road. Various people pass him by, including religiously pious. However, a Samaritan traveler sees the individual, and although the Samaritan is culturally alienated from the beaten man, he recognizes the desperation and individually takes action. Individually. Dressing his wounds, providing a place to rest and refuge, and the Samaritan pays for it himself without demanding remuneration or compensation either from the victim, his family or community, or from the government or ruling class. However, if the Samaritan were a supporter of the dominant theme in social justice, he would have acted with a different motive for different ends. the Samaritan would have used the occasion to lobby for social transformation. One, the robbers were really victims of an unjust economic system and had acted in a response to the oppression of the ruling class. In other words, the people that commit crimes do it because they're poor. If you set the right environment, they'd stop doing crime. That's the idea of basically man's a product of his environment versus all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, original sin. The humanist says we just set the right environment, people will be good. That man is basically good and a product of his environment. Set the right environment, people will do fine. That's not what the Bible teaches. The Bible in Jeremiah says the heart of man is deceitfully wicked above all else. Who can know it? So first of all, the issue would be, well, why did the robbers do it? Because they have not been treated fairly. There's economic disparity. Two, in order to bring justice to this oppressed class and to steer them back into a caring community, equality or equitable wealth distribution should take place. The rich must be taxed to fund necessary social programs. A more equitable society is needed. Three, who will pay the victims' medical bills? The community or the rich. Four, this tragic event, the Samaritan would tell us, is a graphic reminder of the class struggle. We're all victims of the unjust economic order. Therefore, we must be the violence of the voiceless. Therefore, we must be the voice of the voiceless and advocate for radical social change. In the social justice framework, there's another agenda that lurks behind it, the tragic. A political economic cause is a piggybacked and leveraged. The cause of economic inequality through wealth redistribution. This isn't about truly helping the victim. It's about using the victim. Biblical justice, on the other hand, never seeks to dismantle class structures. Evil actions are condemned. But this isn't specific to a particular social strata. Consider the words in Leviticus. You shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor, nor honor the persons of the mighty. But in righteousness shall you judge your neighbors. Mark W. Henderson said this about Ty Cribb's commentary. Biblical justice not only means that nobody is to be picked on because he's poor or favored because he is rich, but the contrary to the doctrine of social justice, nobody's to be picked on because he's rich or favored because he is poor. The fundamental error of today's social justice practitioners is their hostility to economic inequality per se. Social justice theory fails to distinguish between economic disparities that result from unjust deeds and those that are part of the natural order of things. All Christians oppose unjust deeds, but it isn't necessarily unjust for some people to be rich or richer than others. You see, the social justice warriors, they seem to want to love to pick on the churches. But there's no biblical mandate for the church. Now, individually, if you want to be a good Samaritan and do this individually, go right ahead. But there's no biblical mandate that says the New Testament church has to go around paying the medical bills, paying the grocery bills of unbelievers outside the church. Again, hear what I'm saying. Don't hear what you think I'm saying. If I see someone in need and I can help them, I'm prone to probably helping them. I have done that. I'm sure many of you have done that. But we do it because we want to be a good witness, salt and light. And if I can pick up someone's tab, and I did that not too long ago. I'll give you an example. I've not told this story publicly. It happened a few months ago. My wife and I were in a restaurant. And we went into the restaurant, and there were about 8 teenagers, maybe 7 or 8, probably 7 or 8, standing outside as we walked into this hamburger joint to grab a quick meal. Just we're literally going to get a hamburger and go. Now, we're gluten-free, both of us, so I think we were doing something like steak on a stick, a little bit of steak on a stick with some, I don't know what else went with it, but we're gluten-free. But we went into this joint, and there were these teenagers. They're probably maybe even early college. They were probably college age, because my wife and I commented, I think they're home from college. They were college students. We're pretty sure of that. And the place was crowded. And we walked in. I said, I hope the wait's not long. And they heard me, and they laughed and said, yeah, it's going to be quite a wait. And I said, well, let's hope not. Let's see. Let me see what I can do. And I was dressed like this. And so I walked in, and young people tend to, I don't know what it is, but a guy in this day and age wears a suit, but they tend to want to talk to you. They joke with you. They sometimes will ask you, what do you do for a living? Because so few people run around in a suit anymore, particularly, at night. And so anyway, they were joking with me a little bit. I joked back, and we got in right away. And we were sitting there when they walked by us to their table. And I said, how was the wait? And I laughed because we got right in. I mean, they were there before us. We got in before they did. And they made some joke back at us. And I said, well, I'm glad you got a table. And they walked by. Now, my wife and I ordered some cheese fries. And when we were waiting on our main meal to come by, I said to the waiter, send some cheese fries down to those kids. Tell them they're from my wife and I. And they did. And all of a sudden we hear this thank you, really loud, multiple thank yous coming. And we look down, it's from them. Yeah, great. Now, these people aren't in need. But here's the point I'm making. We are older adults. They were in their early 20s or college students. Okay? And we thought this would be a great gesture because they were being friendly to us. They were being respectful to us. We, as older adults, were engaging them in a friendly conversation. And they were very polite, very respectful, and good-hearted. And we just thought, that sends a good message to young people today that there are older people who are for them, right? That are out there for them. Go and live the American dream. Don't give up. There's an older generation. We've been down that road. Life is hard. Life is tough. We're all for you, right? And so it was just a way of saying from one generation to another, we appreciate you. And it went over huge. Later, they came over to the table and said, thank you. And we said, hey, it's our joy. We have kids older than you guys. And I know life can be tough. And you're working hard to get through your station in life. And we just wanted to bless you there. That, again, there's no biblical mandate to do that. And many of you have probably done something like that. And something far better when you see someone you know is a widow or has children and has been abandoned. So I'm not saying that we individually cannot do things and shouldn't do things for a platform of the gospel or to have a positive impact on people. But there is no biblical mandate that says these churches are to just start coughing up money left and right, the people outside the church. Or as I belabored the point, there will be no money for those who they are ordered to take care of, those inside their own New Testament fellowship. And as it turns out, perhaps this is exactly what the folks on the phone call thought, a setup. But Logan, this has gotten millions of views, hasn't it? Did someone tell me one of these has had like 4 million views? I think your mom said one of the accounts had like 4 million views of this. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's had a lot. But I wanted to address it tonight from the Bible. And that's what we've done. All right, guys, before we go tonight, don't forget, go to worldviewstore.com, order up the free business cards. They're free. It's a pack of free business cards. We'll send them out to you, okay? We'll send out these free business cards to you, and then you pass them out and say, hey, waiter, waitress, someone maybe you meet at a store, standing in line at the grocery store, maybe someone you know. Hey, check out this network. It's a free network. They're 24/7 on news. Watch them for 30 days. See if you're not better informed. Worldviewstore.com. Thank you for ordering these. Hey, may God save America. Take care.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon.
I finally completed teaching through the book of Revelation, verse by verse. Woo! Wow. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, but boy, I enjoyed it. And I learned a lot. I have people that I know that somehow in some fashion scoff at Bible prophecy. I have friends I have to try to convince that what we're doing over here is important. And many of them want to say, oh, you just can't know. It's so allegorized. Have you studied the book of Revelation? Well, I've read it. No, it wasn't the question. Have you studied it? Have you done a verse-by-verse study? Because there are very few parts we can't fully understand. Some stuff, no, there's a few parts where I'm like, But overall, the big picture, the book is called Revelation, unveiling in the original. It isn't mysteries. It isn't called confusion. It isn't called allegorization. It's called unveiling, revelation. And it unveils so much of what's coming. And I would say that as MAGA is collapsing, and I hate to tell you folks, MAGA is collapsing. As MAGA is collapsing, and there are some things that are happening that are great and they're good, and I'm happy for them. But overall, MAGA is collapsing when we are building a Qatari base in Idaho. MAGA is not on a firm foundation when we have one of the ISIS leaders who had a $10 million bounty on his head walking into the White House today. And I can keep going down the list. There are some good things happening, but I'm not discouraged. I'm not angry. I'm not upset. I'm not bitter. I'm not fretful. I'm just, you know what? What we said from the beginning, there are going to be some great days in the Trump administration, and there are going to be days where we're like, what is he doing? What are his advisors telling him? And I'll tell you something, folks. I'm not angry or bitter because I didn't really have that high of expectations. Because like many of you, we've lived long enough to know